father's mistake. At 21, he had become engaged to an English socialite. He had been hopelessly in love with Cecilia and had lived to regret his susceptibility when she'd ditched him almost at the altar. In the 8 years since then, Jay had toughened up. He was no longer naive or romantic. He didn't do love anymore. He didn't do serious relationships. There were countless beautiful women willing to share his bed without any promise of a tomorrow, and no woman ever left his bed unsatisfied. Casual, free, and essentially forgettable, he had learned met his needs best. As the limousine drew up outside the cemetery, Jay idly wondered what Willow looked like now. Sadly, it was 3 years since he had last seen her father, who had turned into a recluse after his terminal illness was diagnosed. She had been away from home studying on his last visit, he recalled with an effort. He had not regretted her absence because as a teenager she had had a huge crush on him, and the amount of attention she had given him had made him uncomfortable back then. She had been a tiny little thing, though, with that hair of a shade that was neither blonde nor red, and the languid green eyes of a cat, startling against her pale skin. Willow stood at the graveside beside her friend Shelley, listening to the vicar's booming voice as he addressed the tiny group of mourners at her father's graveside. Brian Allerton had had no relatives, and by the time of his passing, even fewer friends, because as his illness had progressed, he had refused all social invitations. Only a couple of old drinking mates, one of whom was a neighbour, had continued to call in to ply him with his favourite whiskey and talk endlessly about football. A slight stir on the road beyond the low cemetery wall momentarily captured Willow's attention, and her breath locked in her throat when she realised that a limousine had drawn up. Several men talking into headsets entered the graveyard first, bodyguards spreading out in a classic formation to scan their surroundings before Jay's tall, powerful figure, sheathed in a dark suit, appeared. Her heart clenched hard because she hadn't been expecting him, having assumed that the message she had left at his London home would arrive too late to be of any use. "Who on earth is that?" Shelley stage whispered in her ear, earning a glance of reproof from the vicar. But no, contrary to Willow's expectations, Jay, technology billionaire and media darling, had contrived to attend, and even though he had missed the church service, she was impressed, hopelessly impressed, that he had actually made the effort. After all, her father had, during his illness, stopped responding to Jay's letters and had turned down his invitations, proudly spurning every approach. "Wow, he's absolutely spectacular," Shelley sighed, impervious to hints. "Talk about him later," Willow muttered out of the corner of her mouth, keen to silence her friend. Shelley was wonderfully kind and generous, but she wasn't discreet, and she always said exactly what she was thinking. "He's really hot," Shelley gushed in her ear, "and he's so tall and built, isn't he?" Jay had been hugely popular at school when Willow was growing up in the little courtyard house that had gone with her father's live-in employment. The last in a long distinguished line of Rajput rulers and warriors, Prince Jay Singh had been an outstanding sportsman and an equally brilliant scholar, and Willow had often suspected that Jay had been the son her father would have loved to have had in place of the daughter who had sadly failed to live up to his exacting academic standards. And even though it had been 3 years since Willow had seen Jay, she still only allowed herself a fleeting glance in his direction and swiftly suppressed the shiver of awareness that gripped her with mortifying immediacy. After all, a single glance was all it took to confirm that nothing essential had changed. Jay, the son of an Indian maharaja and an English duke's daughter, was drop-dead gorgeous, from the crown of his luxuriant blue-black hair to the toes of his very probably hand-stitched shoes. Even at a distance she had caught the glimmer of his extraordinarily light eyes against his golden skin. His eyes were the palest wolf blue in that lean, darkly handsome face of his, a perfect